off. So
Cool. Sounds good.
cool. All right. If you see me looking to my other screen, it's because I got all of our questions pulled up and all our notes on you. So I'm not trying to be rude, but let's do this thing. I'm excited, boys. This will be fun. Elevation Nation. Tonight, today, whenever you are listening to this episode, we have a very special treat and a super special guest for you all. We have Josiah Mihok coming to you. An incredible story that we're going to let him share with you all. We're going to talk a lot about life as a young adult, some of the challenges you face, some of the exciting things on the horizon for you and your family, Josiah. We are super honored that you are on the Elevation Nation podcast with us. And I was saying before we started recording here, one of the coolest things about having a podcast is it allows us to meet new people. And a lot of the times it's Parker and I asking for friends of friends or connections or cold emailing people. But this one was special. I'm not going to lie, Josiah, because when you reached out, man, like that meant so much to us. When people reach out and ask to come on the podcast, it means that I guess somehow you found Parker and I semi-interesting. And so we appreciate that. And we're so excited to share your story, get to know you a little bit more, and talk to Elevation Nation. So thank you for joining us, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me in your sandbox. I always think of like the podcasts and stuff that I would, the conversations, people I'd like to have conversations with who I've been listening to. And I'm like, I kind of just want to go play in their sandbox and just see what they're working on, like what they're building over there.
That's pretty cool because our sandbox is pretty much virtual. It's only been through the camera and with some microphones that we purchased off of Amazon for like $50. But the sandbox has grown. We've invited a lot of people to Elevation Nation. But Josiah, I heard that you started a winery, vineyard, something like that, which I am super excited to get into because my girlfriend and I, we were in California and we went to a winery and we're like, how the hell does this all happen? How does it all work? So I can't wait to talk about that. But before we jump into everything, it is Elevation Nation. I know you know that we ask every person who comes on the podcast for their elevator pitch. Josiah, who are you?
So Josiah Mihok. I am a brother of 6 siblings. I'm the middle child, and I'm married to an amazing wife who got right into the thick of it right after we got married. And we're building a vineyard. I've been in financial technology for the last few years, and I've been in the tech space for about 8 years. And my passion's like working with people. 3 words for me is I'm an integrator, a helper, and a doer. I really like working on stuff with people that are doing stuff, like integrating different skills from different teams. And I get a lot of fulfillment out of helping people get where they want to be, like in business or just personally. I love connecting with people and seeing where they're going and how I can help.
And Josiah, when we were talking, I mean, we have a lot in common in terms of our professional world as well, of just being in the tech space, trying to build things from a product standpoint and a digital design standpoint. So I love all that. And again, one of the reasons why we connected, and you being in Georgia and my parents being in Georgia now, we have that connection as well on North Georgia. So again, a little bit of serendipity that we all got together and are able to share this evening, chatting with each other and becoming friends. And I think that's super special. So I love that elevator pitch. I love that you broke it down to kind of 3 adjectives really to describe you or things that epitomize you. And it's funny that that's how you kind of started your elevator pitch, because that's how Elevation Nation actually started. Parker and I, we graduated college and had no idea really who we were, what we wanted. And we worked with a mentor of ours, Rich Keller, who came up with our word, our one word, our value we bring to the world. And that's where we settled on elevator, that we like to elevate ourselves and other people and the community around us to get a little bit better each and every day. So I love, we didn't prompt you, we didn't prep you for that, but you didn't jump right into like, I do this, XYZ, right? Like I have this profession, because I think a lot of times young people sometimes struggle with the career that they have as defining them, or the city that they live in defining them, or the degree that they got defining them. But we are all so much more than just what we do. We all have a story behind us. And so I appreciate you kind of setting the stage there.
I will
absolutely.
say, I'm a little disappointed in Rich that he gave us the same word. Now that I think about it, it's like, oh, I did the workbook. We put in the work, months and months of work. Sam did his on his own. I did mine on my own. obviously we come from different backgrounds. We submit it. We talk with Rich, and he's like, you know what? I got the same word for you guys. I'm like, oh no. But I will say, I love you, Rich Keller. You've changed my life. And honestly, look at us now. We're elevating all across the world, I guess, if you want to put it that way. And we're about to hit 200 episodes. So, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you done this program, Josiah? Do you know Rich
No,
Keller?
I haven't. Rich was so sweet. He actually worked with me off the program, which is amazing. So I guess this is kind of like a give and take because he did you guys for 2 and he did me for free. So it's just such a great guy. I love that you use
Exactly.
because you have to write down the words and like for to identify yourself. And serendipity is the one that we confirmed. It's just like how like certain circumstances happen, and then over time, I've like those 3 words I gave you: helper, integrator, doer. Those are things like actions that I've tried to develop based off of how I work and my identity and the things that I prioritize in life. And those are the 3 things. But serendipity, the way I met my wife, the way I got in my career, the way my interests have molded me towards the people I've met, and how, even go through the difficult portions of my life, how I've been able to impact other people. Serendipity's it, baby.
I love it. I think it's beautiful. And you mentioned your wife, Laura, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, Lauren.
We want to, I mean, you can give her a little shout out here. We can talk about, I'd love to know how you guys met, right? Like, I am a single guy in DC trying to get to that next stage of my life of where I'm going to meet my partner. I'd love to hear a little bit about your guys' story. I know she's been so integral to who you are and what you've been going through. And obviously having a partner like that is super special. So what tips can you give to me, man? Like, think of me like a younger brother. I'm out here struggling on the dating apps, bro. It's not easy. So what guidance you got for me?
Yeah, I think probably just one of those serendipitous happenstances that happened. I was terrible at college. I couldn't pass a math class to save my life. And I spent some extra time in school. And I met her when I was trying not to date anybody because I was just embarrassed that I was 21 going on 22. And I knew I was going to do another take around the bases. And I like told my best friend, I was like, I'm not going to date anybody until I graduate. Like, I'm so close. I just need to focus. And like a week after I told him that, I went together with some fraternity brothers who I played rugby with in college, and like I was like going over to meet them that afternoon or something. And I went through Dunkin' Donuts drive-through, and I met my wife in the Dunkin' Donuts drive-through. I was just like, man, she is cute. And one of my brothers worked at Dunkin' Donuts, and I mentioned it to him, and he was like, "We'll bring her tonight. Like, we'll invite her to come tonight." And we met up and we talked, and we just like couldn't stop making googly eyes at each other. And I walked her out to her car at the end of the night, and I was just like, I mean, I feel like I've just met somebody so special. And yeah, she's an angel. She's everything to me. It's a miracle that we wound up meeting each other. And I don't know why she's still with me, because we got married, and like we got married in October, and 3 days after we got married, she turned into a full-time nurse. So yeah, something special.
What was the feeling like when you like knew like she was the person for you? Like, I feel like everyone has that moment for people who take it to the next level.
I knew that she was something special the first time that we spent time together. And when we were around other people, I was like, I've never met anybody like this. This is crazy. And I feel like the moment I knew I wanted to be with her, I was on the road, I was consulting, and I was traveling a bunch. And we had talked about it a couple of times, but when I was traveling on the road, I think I was headed to like Philly, and I went to like the Rocky Steps or something for the first time. And I was like, I'm really not even enjoying this, because I was like by myself, just like looking at this cool thing that I like grown up watching. And there's like nobody for me to be like, hey, wow, is this crazy? And like there's only one, like the only person I wanted to share that with. I was just like, like Laura's not even here. This isn't even fun. And like I didn't have like an aha moment. I was just like, man, I'm so fortunate to be traveling all over the country on a company dime, and I'm traveling alone, and I should be really happy about this, but I just want to be back home, or I just want her to be here. It's just not as much fun. So I think that's something special when you find the right person.
It happens when you're least expecting it, right?
Yeah. you always want family or friends to be around when you're doing fun stuff. But when you find one person you're like constantly thinking about, that it's just like not fully fulfilling. That was it for me. It might be different for other people.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. And so obviously meeting her was something special, and you knew right away. And you guys have a pretty incredible YouTube video out there that we're going to link in the bio so folks can watch. But it was pretty miraculous to hear a little bit about your guys' story and how important she has been and will be in your life. Not just getting married, but you mentioned her turning into nurse, 3 days after your wedding. Let's talk about that for a minute, and I guess that reality. And then I want to go into some vineyard stuff too, because I know that's what Parker and I are really interested in as well. Not going to lie.
Yeah, so I started having just like really weird really weird like headaches, like migraines and stuff. And this was 2019, like in the summertime. And I just, I was just taking medicine like left and right just to like get rid of the headaches. And I put up with it happen for a little bit before I told her. I was just going through a lot of work stress at the time. And that's just what I like expected it to be from her. I just imagined what it was. And eventually, like after putting up with it for a while, I let Lauren know. And then we were getting close to the day we were going to get married. And I told her about it. She set up an appointment for me to go and see a what is it? Not a therapist. That's like the only word that can come to mind. Neurologist. So she took me to go see a neurologist, and he was like, "Okay, what are these things you're having? Like, what are the other symptoms?" And I was like, "It's weird. Like, I'll feel it come on, and then I'll get distracted for a minute. Sometimes I'll have like deja vu, and I like lose focus on what I'm working on my computer." And then I'll come back, like I can focus after like a minute or two. I can get my focus back. And I told him like also one of the weird things, I was getting like metallic notes in my like nose and like tongue. He was like, "That's okay, well, let's get an MRI done." So I had an MRI done, and this is August, so we're 2 months after getting married. And it came back with a tumor in my left temporal. And yeah, so I'm just giving you this background before we get to the marriage part, just because it was just kind of crazy leading up. So 2 months out from the wedding, I found out I got a tumor. About a month out from the wedding, we find out it's about the size of my fist. So the first MRI just came back with a little something. The third one, the second MRI was at 3 Tesla, so like a really dense MRI, and that's when they found out I was about the size of a fist. And then that we were going to have to have taken out right away. And then we were probably about 3.5, 4 weeks out from getting married, and I told her, I was like, "You really don't have to do this. Like, we can put it off, or you really don't have to do this at all, because we've been stressed out the last few months. It's a huge tumor. Our doctor, the guy who's going to take it out, the neurosurgeon, was like, "Look, I'll tell you right now, because of where it is, because how like where your tumor is located, I can tell you right now, you're probably going to have memory loss. You're probably going to have to go through speech therapy. You're probably going to be off balance and have trouble walking and doing anything physical, at least for the first 6 months." And when they were telling me this stuff, he was, trying to be really real with us. He's like, "You might not even remember some of your family members." And that's people who like you have like deep, long memories of being around. So like that really scared us, and we were like, "Okay, well, are we going to remember each other when I get out of this? Or like, am I going to remember Lauren's name when I get out of this thing?" So we had to sit down, and I was just like, "You don't need to do this. Like, this is going to be a lot on you." And she was like, "Of course not. Like, we're going through this together. Like, it's us," which was incredible. So got married a month later, and 3 days later, she took me to get my craniotomy, and I woke up like after a 6.5 hour surgery, and she was standing there. I was like, "Hey, baby doll," which is like what I call her, which was just insane that I could even remember her, because at that moment I was like, "Oh, I'm fine," which of course I wasn't fine, but I was just like, "This is crazy. I didn't even know I was going to wake up." So pretty incredible.
I mean, that is absolutely incredible, and I just can't even imagine what the last how many years have been. Why, it's been 3 years, you said, since the initial diagnosis,
Yeah, so I was diagnosed. So I had a tumor.
right?
I knew that much going into it. So then they took samples. They sent it to Duke University, which has an amazing facility there. So they were actually able to do the samples and let me know what kind of tumor it was. And that's when we found out that it was cancerous. And then we also found out after probably a couple months after they had the tumor out and did the samples that it was glioblastoma and that it was a grade 3. So then for some reason with glioblastoma, they don't use like stages because glioblastoma is pretty much terminal for most people. And with glioblastoma grade 4, it's really hard to treat. And you have like a terminal diagnosis of like less than 2 years. So they gave me 12 to 18 months prior to treatment. So going into the new year, going into 2020, we knew that basically starting treatment at the very beginning of the month in January, we could extend my life between 12 and 18 months. But without treatment, they were giving me, they didn't know how long I would be able to live if I didn't go through any treatment at all. Because it travels and grows really fast, and it's also, glioblastoma develops behind the blood-brain barrier. So a lot of chemo that you do, a lot of them are liquid IVs that you can put in through the arm, and those don't push through. Those can't go past the blood-brain barrier. Those rely on your blood flow to be able to get it there. So the type of chemo that I had to do was a pill that I take, and it's one of the rare ones that can actually push through and extend past the blood-brain barrier, which can affect the type of cancer that I was diagnosed with. So I had to do radiation at the same time I was doing like a really serious high dose of treatment.
Wow. I'm just curious, like I'm really curious, like what was your mindset in living life before you had these initial headaches? And have you taken a step back and like really understood how your mindset has shifted, to where you are today? And, Sam and I talk about mindset all the time and that people go through really crazy experiences and everyone has that thing that changes their perspective, I feel like, on things. So I'm just curious, how has your mindset changed while going through all of this?
Yeah, it's changed a lot. It still is, honestly, like because think about how COVID affected everybody, and we were going through COVID while I was going on treatment. So like life was already shitty, and then
Oh
it
my
got
gosh.
shittier. Life was really crappy. And then it got crappier. So I feel like and I don't want to just say me because like I would probably have died by now just like from depression if I hadn't had Lauren here. So I'm going to keep referring to us a lot. But yeah, it is. It's crazy how much we thought about it because going into getting married, just a few months prior, everybody's telling you like your life is going to change so much. Like once you're married, like you need to prepare for this and that. And then going into it, like honestly, by the time we were a few days out from getting married, like the only thing on either of our minds, other than the fact that we were going to get married, is life is going to change in like 3 days or like 6 days. And yeah, that was crazy. Just like we really enjoyed the day we got married, but it was in the back of our heads the whole time, which most people don't have to be thinking about something like that. Unless you're thinking about the fact that your rent or your mortgage payment is probably going to come out the day that you have to pay the credit card after going on your honeymoon or something. Like there's not usually a lot of stress on your mind going into that.
I want to talk, I guess, a little bit about, you mentioned, obviously your wife is incredible in support system, but you also mentioned that you have many brothers, right? You have your family also supporting you. And one of the things that I found interesting in your video was you learning how to like appreciate and accept the help of others and you feeling like a burden a lot of times. How have you shifted your mindset in that regard of, not feeling as much like a burden, but they just want to spend time with you, right? And help you and get to know you better and through all these experiences. Has that changed, or do you still feel that kind of semblance of burden still?
Yeah, I still do. I've gotten more comfortable than I used to be ego wise with telling people like, hey, I need this, or like I can't commit to that just yet. Or, with Lauren, it's like daily. Like I need you to do this for me because I can't. Which is really hard to do as not just not just because of where I grew up or anything, but because of how I grew up. You try and do things on your own before, you try and do things on your own, and then you try to change how you're doing it on your own. And then if you absolutely can't do it on your own, you ask for help. And it's like knowing my limits is really weird because like mentally, even after going through treatment and everything, my memory and my recall and stuff really suffered for a while. Like I knew who people were, but it took me like a little bit longer to function and recall things. And that's still like a thing a little bit. I'll forget when I like leave something upstairs, and I'll go upstairs and I'll go to grab it and I come back down, and it's like it happens more than it probably would for most people. And I just have to get help. I just have to tell Lauren like when I'm struggling with something that I need her like to remind me of stuff. Like put it in the calendar, because if you tell me tomorrow, I'm going to forget it's next Wednesday. More than most guys already do. It's more of a daily thing. So yeah, asking for help.
Dude, I like sit here and like I sit here and I'm just like thinking, I'm like, you are like like you're going through this experience. And then on top of that, you're a husband. You're a brother to a massive family, right? You have all these people who love you around you. And then you're doing your job. You got your job. You're putting time and effort to. And then on top of that, you're starting a vineyard. And I'm just like, I'm thinking to myself, like from a like perspective wise, like you're like a superhero when it comes to like just doing these things. And I'm just truly taken back. I got like, goosebumps on my arms. Like I'm just inspired by your ability and willingness to just do so much and be so much to so many other people, even though the circumstances might not be what you want them to be. And I sit here and I'm just like, wow, like how do you freaking do it? How? Like it's just incredible to me.
Well, I really appreciate that, and it's amazing that we live in a day and age that we do, because you hear the term a lot from like the baby boomer generation, and they're like self-made man, and like I don't believe that BS for a moment, because like there's no such thing in this world as a self-made man. You pick up a book in your life, you're not self-made anymore. Like somebody else wrote that shit. So yeah, Then I'm really that takes a lot of that took a lot for me to realize that I was going to need a lot of help for stuff. Like I've worked really hard in my life to get to where I am, but I sure as crap didn't do it on my own. Like I had people every step of the way. I had brothers who told me like crap that they didn't get away with, so I didn't try. And then there's other stuff that I tried just because I just felt like I could do it. And but yeah, I've had a lot of help along the years from people, career-wise too. A lot of people who stood up for me, and they were like, I mean, he might not be fully qualified, but you got to say this guy he has something. And I would bring that one thing to the plate, and then I had other skills that just like showed out because I was given that one shot at something. And yeah, underdog syndrome makes you work really hard too. So when I feel like I'm incapable of something because I've got like a limit like stuck to me, like I'm just like, okay, well, why? Why do I feel like that? And what's one thing that I can do right now, or like just by employing somebody else's advice? Like, Dad, like, what's in this situation? Like, why does this thing keep bugging me? And then they'll just say something stupid to you, like, well, I mean, if it's bugging you so much, are you losing sleep over this? Yes. Is it distracting you during the day at work? Yes. Are you having trouble like communicating with other people, or like talking to like other people at work about it? Yes. All right, maybe you should like dedicate an hour of your freaking time to it, and like, at least at least chip away at whatever that thing is that's bugging you. So I don't know if that answered your question or not, Parker.
I think it elaborated on it more, and it brought up something
totally.
that I wanted to bring up. Parker actually recommended, I don't know, Josiah, if you've watched this yet on Netflix, that, what is it? It's Stutz, Parker? Is that how you pronounce it? Have you seen this yet, Josiah?
No.
Oh, yeah.
It's like
I think
it's a new like Netflix doc with Jonah Hill about his therapist. And I'm not even through it yet, but he brought up something that you kind of reminded me of when talking about like, I'm not doing this alone. If you pick up a book, you're getting help from someone else. And they're talking in this thing about how like failure and vulnerability and the willingness to learn, it sends out a signal to the world that's like, I want to connect with you and I want to learn from you because we can't do this whole thing by ourselves.
Yeah.
And so I thought about that last night, and you just saying it again, it resonates with me a ton because it almost like brings me back to my core of why we started Elevation Nation. Parker and I were very lost. I decided with Parker that we were going to get vulnerable of like, what the hell is your like adulthood? Why did no one prep me for this? Like, we got a degree, but I still like feel depressed and I'm not sure who I am and I don't know what I want in life. And like all this stuff is hard. And so we became vulnerable. And now we've had this amazing community of people that we're so excited to welcome you to. And I like cannot wait to introduce you to all our other amazing elevators out there. We have almost 200 episodes in now, like so many people that will love to learn from you. And it's like, we do this because you need that community of people to lean on and grow from and learn from. And I think a lot of the times we're in a digital society where, you know, I work from home. Like you're looking at my office right now. I don't really go in and meet that many new people. And I don't really get out in the community that much, to be perfectly honest. And so by having this digital community of people that we can lean on and grow with, it's like so critical, I think, for just like the human species overall. I feel like it's like in our DNA somehow, you know?
Yeah, man, it really is. I don't know if it always was. I feel like there's probably a time I'm talking like thousands of years ago where it was like survivorship. And it's like, if you don't see your neighbor, that's probably a good thing. Maybe Bob's dead. And maybe that's a good thing for all of us. But yeah, I feel like you're right.
That's
I work
funny.
from home too. My wife works from home. And you were talking in the podcast the other day about like, you're like, I think it's been a solid week since I've been out. Like, other than my compound that I live in with like the pool and the gym. It's like probably a week. And when you said that, like, I actually started laughing out loud because I was like, that's hilarious because that's like, it's not just you. Like, so many of us do that. We'll get groceries for a week. And then, like, Lauren has to go in the office one day a week, but it's negotiable. Like, she'll go in if she needs to, but it, like, I don't go into, my company doesn't have an office anymore, not since COVID. And it's like, I'll get cabin fever where, like, after day 2 or 3, I'm a sociable person and I miss having conversations with just her. Like, not in a bad way, but it's like, we're around each other all the time. Like, what news is there? You know? So, yeah, it is crazy how that really is embedded in us. We need to conversate with other people. If you're a competitive person, it's good for you to talk to other people just to, like, hear what they're talking about. Maybe not just to compete, but be like, oh, yeah, I hadn't thought about that. And if you're a competitive person, you're like, why hadn't I thought about that? Why is he thinking about it? And I haven't even thought about that yet. So, yeah, it's conversation and just being around other people is just so important.
I couldn't agree more. I'm reading this book right now about it talks about just interpersonal relationships and how we need them, but they're also the cause of all problems too, because the interpersonal relationships are the things that, you learn from people, you get in arguments, if you were literally in a box alone,
Yeah.
what would be the problem? You wouldn't have anyone to converse with
Yeah.
about, to know whatever. And so I don't think life is life without the people in and surrounding yourself, the people you surround yourself with. And I think as a young adult, as I've gotten older, and I think we talked about this recently, Sam, I forget what episode, but you just start to appreciate those who really are stuck, who you spend more and more time with. You grow older, and I feel like you're not in a bad way. Your group your social circle may shrink a little, but I think that's a good thing. You find the people who care for you. You find the people who are there for you, and you can have cool, funny conversations about what's going on in the news. But then also people like Sam who can help me elevate and grow as a person, and can call me out on my BS, or someone like you, Josiah, where I can meet you for the first time and we can just have a conversation and learn from each other and
Yeah.
from our own personal stories. And relationships are everything, man. Without them, there's nothing. I truly believe that.
Yeah, and it's like what was it? I forget which guy it was I was just listening to, but he was talking about how, you go through life and you don't talk to certain people for the longest time, and you get back together again for like a wedding or something like that, and you just kick it off like straight from scratch. You remember like the last thing you were talking about, or like the last stupid thing they did the last time you saw them, and so it's like it's not like you go through seasons where you lose people. You just go through seasons like you're saying about where maybe your social circle gets smaller. And I used to be really worried about that. I was homeschooled until college. Okay, so like I had 5 friends, and all of them had the same last name, and like that was really tough. So like when I got to university, like when I went to university, like I was obsessed with meeting as many people and like memorizing names and like little interactions I had with them. I was like obsessed with it. I'm not even kidding, because I was like, I need to be around people, even if it's embarrassing, and it really was most of the time at first. It's like even if it's embarrassing, I need to be comfortable being around a horde of people, not just because I want to be popular, but like I feel like I need to be accepted by people and figure out how this whole like thing works with people your age. That we're all judgmental when you're like 17, 18 years old, and nobody's got to figure it out yet. But think of how hard that has to be for kids right now that are like skipped like 2 or 3 years, or like at least 2 years of high school, and then you're trying to figure out how to have conversations with people, and everything you're watching online is people judging each other, making comments about how stupid each other are, because there's no repercussions for it.
I can't even imagine, like when COVID hit, we were complaining, but like all I had to do was just join my meetings from a computer and was able to like do my laundry in between work meetings. Like I didn't really have it that bad. I can't imagine for some of the younger people the struggles that they had, and like developing from a social standpoint is just crazy complex. I'm optimistic that we are on the other side of that thing, though, for sure. I sure hope so. So
Yeah.
it's been crazy. But Josiah, I want to ask you, man, we love wine. Parker and I love wine. We know that this is like the next chapter of your story. I want to talk a little bit about that. And I'm sure wine has a lot of lessons we're going to learn about life as well.
Yeah.
Talk to us about what's the plan for you and the missus here. Because I'm excited. I want to come visit you. You're not that far away from my parents down in Savannah, man. I think Parker and I might have to make a trip.
Yeah, I mean, you got to fly into ATL anyway, so unless you're flying straight into Savannah, that sounds miserable. But you do you.
Sometimes I can. There are some direct DC flights. Sometimes I get lucky, and sometimes we've got to connect through ATL. So for you, I will absolutely do a layover, and we will come visit. So let's hear about it. What's on the agenda, man?
Yeah, so we bought the property already. It's just under 24 acres. It's up in North Georgia. There's this beautiful, like I wouldn't say up and coming. It's been here for a while now. There's this beautiful wine region in like the Lumpkin County, White County area. So like Cleveland and Dahlonega. You've probably been up here before, but it just where the Appalachian Mountains start, where that mountain range starts. There's a little wine community of like 45, maybe 50 vineyards at this point, and some of them are vineyards, which means they're physically growing the vines, and then there's some that are wineries, so they're just making wine. And they're just selling it elsewhere. You can go into their tasting room, you can try it on site. And then there's some of the big ones up here, like the one we want to do eventually in the next few years is a vineyard and winery. So you have vines like the ones we're planting, and then you have a tasting room where people come in and taste your wine and then some other stuff from the area if they want to. Think of like a brewery where like sometimes they'll have stuff of their own, but then they'll have like a cider from Savannah or something like that. So that's kind of like what taste rooms are up here. Because if like we're planting 2.5 acres to start off with, which doesn't really sound like a lot, and it like juice wise, it's not. So like juice that you're going to turn into wine, it's not a lot, because like one cluster that like the ones you see the pictures of, those really beautiful looking wine clusters, you would need like 2.5 of those for a bottle of wine. So 2.5 acres, you'd sell out of really quickly. So you wind up working with others in the area to like share wine, like the juice, and then you'll ferment it, make it into wine, and then bottle it and everything. So it's a lot of work, but
Wait. So you're saying 2 acres does not yield a lot of wine?
No, it really doesn't. Like if we open up a tasting room with the vines that we're planting, which is about 2.5 acres, and we opened a tasting room and we like ran for one full year, we'd probably be out in less than a year. And because the big season here when people come
Wow.
up to the mountains is when the weather changes and the leaves start changing color. So you got like September through December when people are out doing stuff for their like going to weddings and events and they're going up for the weekend and tasting wine. And you're talking like thousands of bottles that you're gonna sell on weekends and holidays and weddings. So it will run out quickly.
So I always have this thought, uh, well, I don't always have this thought. I gained this thought after I did a winery tour in Temecula, California with JJ, my girlfriend, for an entire day. We went to like five or six wineries. It was a great day, beautiful out there. And I was wondering, like, do people do this to make money, or do they do it because it's just a really beautiful thing and it's a passion and it's just really cool to be able to do that? Like, I always felt like it just seems such a like a cool, hard hobby to do. Like,
Yeah.
there's so much, but like, why are people doing it too?
Yeah, I think it has to be a passion project because it's. I've heard a friend of mine, Bill Miller, who has a place up here, beautiful vineyard, Yona Mountain Vineyards. My wife and I actually got married there, um, and they've had a place for about 7 years now, and they've got I want to say they've got like 18 acres planted, which is a huge amount because the rows are like really long and they're separated by about 4 feet in between rows. So you think of like 17 acres of just like dense vines. And they still, if they didn't buy stuff from elsewhere, they'd run out in a year or two. And it's such a huge operation. To answer your question, like I feel like it has to be a passion project starting out from. Is like what he said is it's not a get rich quick scheme. Like it takes a year for the vines to be tall enough to where you have to put them in training vows to keep the deer and everything from trying to eat them. So you got a year before they're tall enough to where they can survive on their own, and you take the testing tubes off, and then you got 2 years, probably honestly more like 3 to 4 years before you've got grapes that are mature enough to where you can take them off and turn them into wine. I mean, they'll be like little grapes at first, but you don't want to eat them for the first 2 years, like 1 or 2 years, because they're just babies. There's like no flavor. So yeah, you
In
have three.
years, you're
Think of
talking
like
years.
a shop where you're selling sweaters. Like most retail sweater shops, they're not making them on site. They're getting them from elsewhere, and then you can open up a shop same day, run your 20% off sale, and you got business and you got sales on the first day. With vines, you got 3 or 4 years before you got a product that isn't just juice. Then you have to bottle it. Then you got to label it. Then you've got to have a license to sell it to where people can drink it on site. Then you have to have a separate sale or a separate license to be able to sell it to people to take with them and leave with a bottle. Like it's a lot of work. So I'm pretty sure I've sold
It's
everybody on the
crazy.
listening list that this is like the best move ever.
I mean, I think it's perfect because now they just have an elevator in their community, in their network that we can just go visit your vineyard. You're doing all the work for us. This is perfect.
So like, what's a community
It's
that you guys
crazy,
are
man. I
part
think.
of?
Oh, go ahead.
What's like a community you guys are a member of, like that's like really embracing stuff, like a car community or something like that, like a hobby you guys have where like anytime you
My
ask a question, those people are like, I got an answer.
So this is a community I'm trying to get more involved in. Parker knows that this is like my favorite new hobby. I'm super into cooking and trying to like pimp out my kitchen with some cool tools and try new ingredients. So I feel like that kind of foodie world is super interesting. I'm not like, you don't need to take me to some like 5-star molecular place for me to appreciate it. Like I want to go to the hole in the wall, learn how they make it. I want to go to the fish market and buy something and bring it back. That community, I think, gets super, super excited. But one, Josiah, that I think also you are going to get involved in soon is the content creation and podcasting community as well, is a super involved one. And then my last community that I have to plug is our community that you're now a member of. And everyone's super eager to help each other in Elevation Nation. So we might not be as fun as the wine community because you guys can drink together, but we still have a good time.
We can all drink
You
together.
know, it's funny. I've always thought, oh man, it's funny. I think the idea of community has shifted over time. The idea, if you asked our parents 25 years ago what community meant to them, it meant, getting together to talk about a certain thing or to do something together. However, I think today community has shifted that you don't need to know physically a lot of people that you're connected to. Obviously, the internet has changed that, but from a community standpoint of like just being online and reading, not even talking to, just reading and listening and hearing and learning from people I don't even know, I feel like I'm in that community, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't have to physically show up. You don't have to physically contribute to be part of a community. You can just feel that connection to someone or something. And I think that's community, you know?
Yeah, and it's yeah, I couldn't have said it better. The community is your interest and your passion to like share with others. It's even if it's not sharing knowledge, it's like sharing the communication of, I'm interested in this. Oh, you're interested in that too? Okay. Well, it's like, why are you interested in it? Like you had asked earlier, like why wine? And I figured out like a few years back that like the reason I like wine is because of how diverse it is, just kind of like people's personalities. And that like interested me because I've been like really, I've always been like really into knowing more about people and not just like what color shirt they like to wear, like where they're from, but like why they tick the way they do. And I think that's one of the reasons why I got really into wine. And you don't need a community for that kind of stuff. You can, like you said, with Elevation Nation, like just cool conversations. And there's not a whole lot of things you have in common with most of your hosts or like most of your guests, other than the fact that they're trying to do things that at one point was really uncomfortable. And then at some point they decided it's uncomfortable enough to
Trying to
me.
elevate.
Yeah, like it's uncomfortable enough for me that
No doubt.
I'm losing sleep over it, and I'm actually just more ticked off about the fact that I haven't done anything about this yet. You know, so and that's something that it's like an irritating point. It's like being a fisherman and like being obsessed with catching the fish, and then you talk to somebody else who like caught it. You're like, you know what? Let's talk about that. Like I'm a little frustrated. I haven't caught my fish yet, but I feel you. Like I want this.
And
Well,
you're
you
gonna
talked
do it
about
until
it
you get
though.
it.
Like chip away at it, right? You got the community of people to help you, and you have the steps you need to take. Like every day, we slowly chip away, we slowly elevate, and like we're all gonna get there eventually, which is the cool part. So I love that. Josiah, I want to ask you. We have another section we like to do, our rapid fire questions. So these are a little less conversational, but they're fun for us at least. And I want to hit you with the first one because it's a perfect transition from talking about your goals with the vineyard. So my first question on rapid fire for you is, what is your favorite type of wine?
Favorite varietal would be Petit Verdot. Yeah, so it's a red varietal.
You're gonna have to teach me, please. Thank you.
Oh, you'll have to give us
It's
details. Like what is the flavor profile?
yeah. So it's a French varietal, so pinky up whenever you pronounce it. So it's Petit Verdot, so you don't pronounce the first half of any of it. Unlike their winemaking, like they don't finish much, but their process is really great. So they got great wine. So it's Petit Verdot if anybody's looking it up online. But it's a red varietal, but you can do almost anything with it. So you can make a rosé out of it. You can actually even make a white out of it. Most people don't know this about most wines, but you can make a white out of any red. All you do is when you take it off and you crush it, you just separate the juice from the grape skins like right away. Like it's not really that hard a process, but it's a red varietal. So the grape skin itself is a red. You can do a whole lot with it. It's like a really thick juice, really like early on when you crush and destem it. But yeah, you can make a bunch of different stuff out of it. You can oak age it, and like you can oak age it in Hungarian oak, American oak, French oak barrels, Alpine oak, and it'll taste different every way you do it. And even the longer you let it sit in a barrel, like the even sharper the notes are going to be. You can stainless age it, and it's going to taste like thin and crisp. So it's really cool. I like how you can change it up so much, but it's got like rich flavor notes. Um, yeah, any bourbon or whiskey fans out there will feel that.
I love how you describe that. I think you know what you're talking about clearly, but secondly, the way it shows your passion and your enthusiasm around wine. I think that's super cool. All right, I
So
got
much more
another
fun.
question, a little bit deeper. Oh yeah. Well, this usually happens. You got interesting people on a podcast and ask them a pretty quick question. They got a lot to talk about, right? Um, okay, next question, a little bit deeper than Sam's question about wine, but you know, I often take time to be mindful about the beauty in life. I try to take a step back and look at things. I was outside today looking at a flower, right? And it was just trying to absorb the flower and really appreciate its beauty. What is one thing that you find beauty in that might, surprise people?
So where we live, our property is just absolutely gorgeous, and it's complete opposite of where we lived before we bought our property. It's like we used to hear sirens all the time because we lived in the city, and we lived like right next to the high firehouse, and also the police department. So you'd hear it all the time. Out here, we hear absolutely nothing. You'll hear a gunshot go off every now and then because everybody loves like just hunting out here. But it's not like in the city where you hear a gun show off, and like you're worried if somebody just got knocked. You know, up here you're like, "Oh, somebody's probably shooting something for fun." That's nice. So it's yeah, I love the peace and quiet out here. It's very different, and I'm okay with it.
Sometimes you need some good peace and quiet, you know? It's funny, right? Like, I used to live in New York and now I'm in DC. And to me, it's like, this is peace and quiet. Even though there's still city and I hear things, like, compared to what I was in New York, like, I feel like I'm in the country. And then when I go to Savannah,
Mhm.
I really feel like I'm in the middle of nowhere, which is beautiful. So I love that. All right, our last rapid fire, Josiah, for you. Parker and I love to read. We think, you mentioned it earlier, when you can read, you can kind of get inside someone else's mind and learn from them. Do you have any book recommendations for Parker and myself?
Yeah, it's so this one's hard for me because I have a hard time just reading through one book. I've actually got like 6 books I'm reading right now, and I'll read like a
Yeah.
chapter of one, and then I get bored, or I'll start losing focus on it, so I'll put it down, and then when I go to the toilet, nobody judge me, but I've got like a shelf like in each bathroom where like there's a book, so not very COVID friendly, but I get distracted easily. One of the only books I've read through all the way, just in like one sitting and not sharing any other time with books, is Tribe of Mentors by Tim Ferriss or Timothy Ferriss. So that was really cool for me because it was like one of the first books I bought for the road. I was listening to Timothy's podcast like way back when like almost nobody had podcasts, and I'd be riding a train up north. I'd be taking like an air tram or something, and I would just sit and I could just devour like chapter after chapter of his book. And I kind of modeled my early professional career after like that approach, the Tribe of Mentors, because it's talking about if there's something you're not an expert about, find somebody who's talking about that and an issue they're having, go to them and be like, what got you interested in this? And without even trying, like everybody who's passionate about something is a natural helper about it. Like if you say, you're really good at this, how did you get into it? Like, why did you get into it? They're not just going to share about it. They're going to want to like share that knowledge with you. And I've on my phone if you got an iPhone, like you can set people that you text the most. And I've got my wife up there, and then I've got like 5 professional mentors that I'll reach out to, and I'll give them a shout out. Joel, Jeff, Heather, like, yeah, it's kind of crazy. Just like, and I can't think of any of their names right now off the top of my head, but it's a rapid fire. So yeah, that one, Tribe of Mentors was really huge. And they like encouraged me to actually go out and be intentional about reaching out to people and connecting to people that could get me further along with an understanding of the stuff that I was actually into.
I love that book. I think it was the first book I read during COVID. It was like, I'm so disconnected. I need a tribe of people on paper to elevate my mental fortitude because I am not feeling it right now. But no, I agree. Tons of awesome advice, and I think it's a super cool book. And you make a great point, like to reach out to people if you want to learn something. Oftentimes we think that people are holding and they don't want to share, but of course you want to share things and talk about what you're passionate about. But Josiah, we've been running for 50 minutes now. Somehow, some way, time just flies when you're having a good conversation. But we always like to end with our favorite section, the mental motto. And for those of you of Elevation Nation who do not know what the mental motto is, it is a slogan that we ask every elevator, a slogan that they live by on a given day. Sam has a mental motto, I have a mental motto, but we've already shared ours. Josiah, we want to hear, what's your mental motto?
Embrace the suck. And I wish I could take credit for that. I read that somewhere. I want to say Jeff Harris, who's one of my mentors. He's a ex-Marine, or I guess as he would say, you're never an ex-Marine. So he's a Marine, and when I started getting sick, I hadn't met him yet, and he connected with me somehow through a second person, a connector, and he's just like, hey, you're going through something, I'm going through something. Like when you go into treatment, just tell yourself, like right out the gate, don't think about every single day you got left. Just embrace the suck of the situation. Wake up and just acknowledge the fact that today's going to be tough and just kick its ass. Like, just embrace the suck of the situation. So, and it doesn't sound like a great motto, but I will say that the sooner you realize that you are in this moment and that it's not going to be the rest of your life, but like right now you just need to deal with it, the more intentional you get about how you're going to spend that shitty moment. So
life is inevitably full of ups and downs, right? And as much as we try to, it's funny, you got to watch this documentary, Josiah, on it's again all on mindset. They talk about this like concept of X, right? Like the problems that you're going to face, whatever X is. Everyone in every life has problems that they will inevitably face.
yeah.
And as much as we can try to prevent them and do whatever we can to live smooth sailing, like that's not realistic.
Yeah.
And so you said this is not a good mental motto. I absolutely love this mental motto because it's all about your mindset, right? If you embrace even your worst days, your best days are going to taste that much sweeter,
Yeah.
right?
100%.
And I think we all need a little bit of mental fortitude. We all need a little bit of toughness. And so it's perfect. I love it, man. That's a good one.
Yeah, you're so right. Like today, if nothing's going on right now and you're listening to this, like that's also probably not possible, that absolutely nothing's going on in your life. But listening to something where you're listening to you're listening to 2 hosts that are being supportive and they're challenging themselves, and interview somebody who's gone through something or is going through something and they're pushing themselves, like that is a pretty cool moment. And you get to realize, like, my situation could be worse, and you value that moment a lot. And then whenever you have something come your way, you take it seriously because you're like, well, this kind of shit happens. Like I was just listening to somebody the other day who was going through something worse. So I probably just need to suck it up and just embrace it for the moment.
I think that's what is mental fortitude's all about, like Sam said, and like what you were saying, Josiah, just taking that step back, being mindful of where you are, and being appreciative. of that moment and those things. And sometimes that's really, really difficult. Sometimes that's more difficult than the day or the things that you're going through,
Yeah.
is to take that step back. So for anyone listening, um, you know, just take a step back and, have a little perspective for sure. But Josiah, I gotta say is just I am so grateful and thankful that you have spent 55 minutes with us, and I'm hyped that you're joining Elevation Nation because I would love to honestly keep the conversation going. I would love to come to your winery and try out your wine one day. I think it is just truly an honor to be able to know someone like you who is going through what you are going through, but on top of that, continuing to elevate and elevate. Did we lose them? It's fine. And I just can't thank you enough for joining us. It means the absolute world to me. And I honestly, this is one of my favorite conversations I've had. It really has. So I just appreciate you.
And until next week, Elevation Nation, peace. That was beautiful.
You
We
guys there?
lost you. We lost you for like 2 minutes when we were closing out. But I was just, saying how much I appreciated you and so hyped that you're in Elevation Nation with us. And